Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Counter-Strike Breakdown. This is Hold the Door DFS at Fantasy Sports Insight. We are offering free video content for most of our sports right now. We are really trying to push the video content out on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Podbean. So feel free to give us a like or subscribe. We greatly appreciate that. And we will continue to put out this content. If you want more content beyond these videos, you can join our Discord channel by going to fsidfs.com, and you can join there. So let's get into tomorrow's slate. We have a 3-gamer that starts at 6 a.m. Central, and then you can also play the 2-gamer at 9:30. I do think the lineup construction is quite a bit different if you are going to leave out the Virtus Pro and Spirit game. So let's start with the Spirit and Virtus Pro. Team Spirit coming in at -155. I'm even seeing some books that I think a little bit more well-versed in esports having them closer to -200. So I do think there's a fair chance that Team Spirit can sweep here. But while I also think that this can be a really competitive game. So start on the Team Spirit side. We have Murr at the top at 8,600, who performed really well the last 2 games, but has really been their best player in the last 6 months since joining the team in September from Gambit. Next after him is Chopper. Chopper has been playing really well in Road to Rio. Didn't really play that well the last 6 months. So I think his price is based on recent form rather than the last 6 months and 3-month sample sizes. If we go down to Idis Balance and Sum Da Young, those two, I think at 6,600 and 6,200 respectively, are very much in play as value plays on the favorite, where I think they are equal in talent to Chopper. Magic's I'm kind of passing. I think he's the in-game leader. Probably doesn't really have a role in a lot of upside in this matchup. If we go to Virtus Pro side, if this game's going to be competitive or close or we get an upset, it's all going to be on James. James is really known for making those clutch plays, the 4 kills, the aces, kind of really holds that team. And at 8,400, his talent is far better than 8,400. It's just how well you think this game plays out. And a lot can obviously do with map picks and other things like that. But I do think James is definitely in play. I think you can play him at cash if you're going against the grain and not just taking Spirit guys. But I think he's a great GPP play that will be a lot lower owned than the guys around him tomorrow. After him, I think Buster, Quicker, those guys are viable, but not really somebody I'm targeting after James, unless you're really team stacking Virtus Pro, which I don't really suggest. That would be a GPP contrarian option. All right, moving on to the next game. It feels like I've been watched G2 a ton lately because they've obviously been playing and they play in the afternoon games where I'm definitely watching at that time. But G2 coming in after beating Heretics in what seemed like a match that they shouldn't have even gone 3 maps. I don't remember if they're up 11-4, 13-4 on map 2, and then let Heretics come all the way back and take that map in overtime. So this matchup, obviously, Zaiwu is going to be the main target for Vitality being the favorite. And just watching kind of back to some of Zaiwu's games, even today on map 2 at Overpass, he was really average. And if they would have just swept, he would have probably scored 65 points. He did really need that 3rd map to get that 85 point game. And actually was a little underwhelmed with that 85 point game because he played so poorly at Overpass, especially when Vitality was down 6 or 7 rounds and then they came back to tie it up. And he actually wasn't really a part of that. He played pretty passive, and I know that map isn't necessarily the best for his style, but I thought he'd be a little bit more involved. So G2, their pricing seems to change every slate. Like Kenny S is sometimes the most expensive. Sometimes it's Hunter. Nexa, I think, is still pretty cheap at 7,000, who's been playing really well or played really well today. Didn't play very well against Australis. But So we have Zaiwu, I think, is your number one target here for Vitality. If Shocks plays anything near what he did today, which was amazing, then he will destroy his $6,800 price tag. I think there's a little bit more risk involved with him. As we know, with any of the Vitality players who all average negative kill to death ratio um, in terms of when they play with Zaiwu. Uh, then on G2 side, which I think this game definitely goes 3 maps or is super competitive. Um, I like Hunter. I like Kenny S. I like Nexa. Probably not going back down to a Maniac, a Manic, or Jax. So I think your targets are Nexa and up, unless you go Shocks for on recent form to hopefully bounce back again from his performance today, which I think he's certainly capable of doing. Zaiwu can't just carry the team. I mean, he can, but I mean, I think he does need his supporting cast to be there for him. He did make some pretty great plays today, but not the. He had a couple of clutch opportunities that he just was 1v1 and missed. I know one would have been a 1v3 clutch plus a 4 kill. Just some of those like little misses that that 85-point game could easily have been 100 plus. And he was actually fairly low owned in all my head-to-heads. He wasn't owned today. People went more of a balanced approach. And then our last game with FaZe and Astralis, I think the pricing of Nico is just showing you his form lately, which is absolutely insane. And the 4 kills, the aces, the fragging, the entry frags, the first kills, he's really kind of in a DFS perspective hitting every single part of that. But he does come in as the biggest underdog on the slate. So I think that if you are going to play Nico, you're playing him over Zaiwu. You're not going to get both of them. And then you're also playing him over Device, who's $800 cheaper. Probably Device has maybe a little less upside because doesn't have the star power of Nico, but I think his recent form is pretty amazing as well. And then the other two that I like for Australis is Magix and Zipix. Zipix really seems too cheap at 7,600, who's actually probably been their second or sometimes their first best player on the team. Dupree played awful the first map against G2, and then really pulled it back in the second map to give himself a respectable round plus the 20-point bonus. But Cold Zera is super cheap at 6,200. That I think if you go 2-1, meaning 2 Astralis and 1 FaZe, I think he might be him or Brokey. Brokey, lately has been when they're favored, he's 8,800, somewhere in the 8,000 range. Cold Zera is usually upper sevens, so you're getting quite a bit of a discount on them just being an underdog. So I think that's when you have to decide: do I punt with a favorite that I'm hoping sweeps, or do I pay up a little bit more for some actual talent that I think if the match stays close, they do really well? So I think that's kind of been in my roster building and kind of learning how to play this as DFS has been where I'm trying to improve as a player and trying to decide when it makes sense just to get off the 3-man stack and play that one player from the other team because it's going to be competitive and they have just more talent than that ultra cheap punt that is really dependent on the sweep. So that's all for my three games today. I think your biggest starting point is Zaiwu or not, and if not, you're likely going to go to Device in cash or Mur. So I think those are your 3 out of the 4. Nico, I think, is viable, but I'm probably not playing him in cash tomorrow. I think he's more of a GPP play. So yeah, take a look at the slates. One other kind of tip that I did today after that first slate locks. Go into your live contests and DraftKings and just take a look at what some of the sharp players are doing. If are they playing a lot of G2 because they think there's a chance they upset or it's close? Do people actually play Nico? So it kind of gives you an idea before that next slate, kind of where some of the ownership might be at. If Device is 70% owned, there would be no reason he wouldn't be 70% owned at the 9:30 slate. So I think that does give me a better perspective too, and I'm building for that second slate because that first slate, there's no late swap. That all the players are showing. So I think that would be just as a tip for playing DFS when we have slates like this. I think that would be something to look at. We will have the showdown slate for the last one for phase. I'm not going to dive into that right now. I do want to touch on, we do get a clutch showdown slate tomorrow. Which I love because I think there's even more of an edge in uh, slates that are not as popular to the public. There's not as much content and info out there. So we will be covering that in full in our Discord channel. It is completely free. I will tell you that W7M is the big favorite in this matchup. But I think if you've been tracking their play over the last month and played some of their showdown slates, the pricing is a lot different than you would have seen 2 or 3 weeks ago. DraftKings adjusting it based on recent form more than talent. So if you kind of want that insight and what our core plays are going to be, hop over to our Discord channel by going to fsidfs.com, going to our subscription plans and clicking free quarantine month. That will probably be ending soon too with some of the major sports coming back. So go jump in that as soon as possible. Again, if there's any other questions you guys have, feel free to comment below. Hit me up on Twitter. You can always DM me in Discord as well. Hopefully you guys have been cashing, and hopefully it continues tomorrow. So good luck. Thanks for listening.